Well, this is Rebecca Clark from Nudge Village, and we would like to welcome you to our virtual conference today. We are going to be hearing from Robert Kennedy, and we're excited to hear from him. He's a performance consultant, and he has a new book out. I think it's called 28 Days to a Better You, but I wanted to keep my introduction short and let him introduce himself, and we're excited to hear from you today, Robert.
I'm excited to be here.
Great. Well, I'm going to turn the time over to you because I've delayed us enough, and I'll hit mute and let you start.
All right. All right. Well, I just want to say thanks to everybody for, first of all, coming here and deciding to allow me to take up a little bit of your day. And what we want to talk about today is, as it says on the screen here, shifting your story, how to change your fear blueprint. Now, the idea here is that everybody has a story, and everybody has a story that they live by and stories that we create as we live. And so I just wanted to start out by introducing myself a little bit so you can hear a little bit about my story and the types of things that I've done or gone through. And Rebecca's already introduced me a little bit, but I wanted to share a little bit more about me, and then you'll hear part of my story and my blueprint as we go on here. So I wanted to, currently I'm a performance coach and small business strategy consultant, and I started out right out of college. I worked in the mental health field. I got a job during college as a mental health counselor, and so I started that after college as well, and I worked up to director in that industry, in that field. And I say that working in the mental health field really prepared me quite a bit for my next job as a middle school teacher. And I spent 1 year doing that. My gosh, I had seventh grade girls and boys that I was just not ready to deal with as a young man. So I lasted 1 year as a middle school English teacher. And then after that, I moved into high school. I taught there for 7 years. I taught science. I taught biology and physics there. And then I moved into the online college world and taught there for a couple of years as well. Now, as a teacher or as somebody who was in the teaching world or the academic world, I still had an entrepreneurial bone. So I started a few businesses as well. My first couple of businesses were started while I was teaching. I had an online music promotion portal, and we really worked up to number 3 in the industry as far as online views and visits and people that were putting their eyeballs on our site were concerned. After that, we moved into developing, because we had a lot of musicians, we moved into developing websites for them. And so we had about 5 years of doing that. So these are my first businesses. Not a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of figuring it out, a lot of seeing which way to go, a lot of failure in a lot of ways. And so that is where I started with that. I then moved into the e-learning and training industry and found that that was really similar to what I was doing as a teacher anyway. And so spent 5 years doing that, and now have over the last year been a performance coach and business strategy consultant. And out of the coaching has come a book. Out of the coaching experience has come a book called 28 Days to a New Me, and I'll share a little bit about that later on. And the idea behind that really is that you can transform your life. You can create commitments. You can do a lot of great things in your life if you only commit to them and really lock in. And that can happen over the course of 28 days. You can form habits. You can do new things. You can break habits. You can do great things in your life over the course of 28 days. All right. And so that's me in a nutshell. And what we want to cover today is we want to look at your stories. We want to look at where you come from. We want to look at how to decide what your stories are. We want to look at how to move forward past your stories. Okay? And I like to say that everyone has a story. We all have a story that we live by and a story that we create as we live. You can choose to create your story or live the story that's created for you. The thing is, you don't control every single element of the story, but you get to choose how the elements contribute to the story. The story is one that you get to live and tell, but other people are the ones that really see and read it and hear the story. Everybody else that looks at you and sees you and is around you, they see the story. And if that makes you nervous, don't worry about it, because they've got their own stories too. But the story that you create is yours. Don't be afraid of your own story. You get to make the rules in the story. Okay? So let's talk about stories for a little bit. Let's talk about stories for just a moment. Now, I one of the things that I like to do is I like to listen to inspirational or motivational speakers or people that really are able to pep me up a bit. People that are able to help me understand that life has possibility. And so one of the people that I listen to sometimes is a man by the name of Zig Ziglar. Love that name. Alliteration. I was an English teacher, can't help it. I love things that sound alike and almost sound like tongue twisters. So that is why I like the name, Zig Ziglar. And Zig Ziglar told a great story told a great story of a young man by the name of David Lofchick. If you want to look this story up, I posted a YouTube link there. You can check that out. And you can see Zig Ziglar himself actually telling the story. But the story is this. The story is that this young man was born, and pretty much right after he was born, he was drooling quite a bit. His face had a hang on one side, on the right side of his face. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback there, Rebecca. Okay, I guess it's gone. All right, so he had something on the right side of his face that allowed his face to operate a little bit differently. It was almost as if there was a stroke or something of that nature on the right side of his face. Now, his parents noticed this and they thought that that was not normal. And so, of course, they took him to the doctor. And the doctor said to him, "Look, this is just something that he's going through. It's a little bit of a almost a stroke-like thing, and he'll grow out of it." And so, of course, they listened to the doctor and they went back home. And then this thing continued, and they decided, look, we're parents, we know what's the best for our child. We know that this is not normal. So they went back to the doctor, and they went to a specialist, and the specialist did an exhaustive examination on David, little David. And at the end of the examination, the specialist said to the parents, well, you know what? I'm sorry to tell you this, but your son has cerebral palsy. He actually called him, he said he was spastic. That was the term that they used back in those days. And he said that your son is never going to walk. He's never going to talk. He's never really going to be able to count to 10. He's not going to be able to do any of the things that quote unquote normal kids do. So the best thing that you can do for your child at this point is to put him into an institution so that the people that are there that have medical capability can take care of this child, and he won't be a drain on your family, and he won't be a drag on the quote unquote normal people in your family. And so the parents, of course, did not listen to this story. They didn't listen to this story. They couldn't accept this story. They had two daughters and this son that they had brought into the world that they believed was their miracle child, that they believed was meant to be for them after they had prayed and done everything that they knew how to do. They did not believe this story that the doctor was telling them. So, of course, they decided that they were going to go to a lot of other doctors. Matter of fact, they went to about 30 other doctors. They went to about 30 other doctors, and each time, the story was the same. Now, of course, they just were not accepting this story, and they decided that this just was not the future for their child. And so they went to a specialist, another specialist, and this specialist his name was Dr. Pierstein, and Dr. Pierstein did an exhaustive examination as well on their child, David. And what happened was at the end of the examination, Dr. Pierstein said to them, "Look, listen, your child has cerebral palsy, and he will not walk, he will not read, he will not be able to count to 10. He will not do anything that normal children do." Then he paused for a moment and he said, "If you prefer to listen to the prophets of gloom and doom," he said, "we can do some things with this child, but you've got to do a couple of things. You cannot have him around anybody else that has or that is diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And you have to listen to everything that I tell you to do." And he gave them a regimen. He gave them some exercises, some things that they could do, and they had to be faithful to it every day. Now, this family, they had a little bit of money, more, maybe more than a poverty-stricken family, and so they were able to do a couple of things. They were able to hire a specialist or a trainer for the young man. And so they were able to work with him every day without fail. Every day without fail. They did exercises. They read to him. They did quite a few things. And so one day, there was a trainer was working with him, and the trainer came running excitedly to the parents, and he said, "Hey, come, you got to see this. You got to see this." And so they went back to the room where he was, and there was the young man on the floor. There was David on the floor, and he was struggling. He was struggling. He was getting ready to do a push-up because that's what he had been working on. He did a push-up, and it took every ounce of strength. Beads of sweat were running from his head, and he was finally able to do one push-up, just one push-up. That was it. And don't you know, with that one push-up, his parents just burst out into tears, and they were crying because this was an activity that more than 30 doctors told them that their son would never be able to do. Never be able to do. And so they continued to work. They continued to work with David. And long story short, after some time, David started to do some of the things that quote unquote normal people do. David started to run. He started to walk before he started to run, but David started to walk. He started to run. David was able to eventually play tennis on his high school team. And so this is the idea. This is the example. A story that somebody tells you, a story that is created for you, even in the midst of maybe some physical circumstances or mental circumstances. There is a story that's created, and you don't have to listen to that story. That story, the ending of the story, is what you want it to be. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about my story. My story was that I grew up in in a comfort zone. I grew up in a comfortable family. I grew up in a family where we weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. Matter of fact, my dad was a minister, my mom was a teacher, and some of that time she was at home. And so we as children, we never went hungry. We didn't have anything to worry about. Our Christmases weren't always the greatest or the largest, but we were always together, and we always had fun together. I grew up in a good family. I had good schools that I went to. As a matter of fact, I went to public school some of the time, but it was worked out that I was able to even go to private schools. My parents, whatever they had to save and sacrifice, they sent us to private Christian schools, and we were able to do that. I went to a college. I was able to go to college. And after college, I was able to go to graduate school. I told you about my jobs. I got a job as a mental health counselor, moved into director, and then I was able to get a job as a teacher. And I stayed in the teaching industry for 10 years. But you know what? All of that happened inside of my comfort zone. All of that happened inside of my comfort zone. I was afraid. I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I was the smart kid in my class, and that made everybody happy. So I thought that was what I was supposed to do, make everybody happy. My parents were happy. My grandparents were happy. My aunts and uncles were happy. My teachers were happy. And you know what? That was also reinforced by the fact that when others in the family did something that wasn't so great or that was different, everybody became unhappy. Everybody decided to talk about what was happening or why this person didn't do the right thing. I had an uncle that was into taking risks, and he was into network marketing before it became really big. He did Slick 50. I don't know if you know about Slick 50, but back then, this was in the 80s. That was a specific oil that should go into your car, and you would never ever have to have an oil change after that. Your car should go forever and ever with this oil, and people were selling this oil as the holy grail of oil. And so this was a company that you could do the same types of things. You could have residual income through this Slick 50 oil. And my uncle did Amway. He didn't get rich at it, and when he didn't get rich, everybody became unhappy. And I heard that he was silly. He was always trying silly things, and I didn't want people to make people unhappy. So I didn't want to try anything that was silly. I didn't want to try anything that took a risk. I wanted to do, matter of fact, when I went to college, I wanted to do communications or electrical engineering. Those are the first things that came to my mind in high school that I wanted to do. I wasn't a big talker. I was shy for most of high school, and I started to talk a little bit more my senior year. So I wanted to do communications or electrical engineering, but I didn't want to travel that far from home. So I chose to do biology at a college that was about 3 hours away from my house. Now, looking back, I really realized that I chose to do biology because at the time I was watching the Cosby Show, and I thought that it would be cool to be the next Cliff Huxtable. Now, the irony was that I didn't try as hard as I could have because I was afraid of the hours that doctors would spend in medical school and working. And what if I didn't like it? What if I screwed it up? What if I made everybody unhappy? There's that unhappy word again. Now, people mockingly say that, those who can't do teach. So I became a teacher. I became a biology teacher. And not that I regret being a teacher, and I may have ended up becoming a teacher anyway, but as you've heard this story, as you've heard my story, looking back, I can see that my path was based on fear. My path was based on limitation or worry. My path was based on me being afraid to come out of my comfort zone. Now, don't blame my parents, don't blame my relatives, don't blame my teachers, don't blame anybody that influenced me. They were also simply acting on their story. They were only acting on what they knew. They were acting based on their blueprint. All right. Now, let's talk about blueprint for a second. What is your blueprint? And your blueprint, when I talk about the blueprint, I'm talking about the things that you may default to, the things that you believe, your values, your systems, the things that are really a part of you so that when you're not even thinking about it, these are the things that guide how you act, things that created the person that you are. Okay? The events, the environments, the people, the influences. What is your personal blueprint? Now, let's explore this for a second. And I want you to take out a sheet of paper if you haven't gotten this, if you don't have one yet, or you can even do this on your computer if you want. I want to ask a few questions here, and I want you to take a few minutes to answer them as honestly and critically as you can. Don't take too long. Don't think about it. Just spit out the answers as quickly as you can and as honestly as you can. Okay? So here's the first question. What was your dream as a child? What was your dream as a child? And I'll give you a few moments to answer that. What was your dream as a child? I wish I had some mood music. I should have thought of that and put some mood music in the background. All right, let's look at the second question. Are you living that dream now? Okay, that should be a simple yes or no, maybe so answer. Let's look at the third question. Okay, if you're not living it right now, or you are living it right now, why or why not? Strange enough, not strange, the majority of people, you'll probably find that you're not living your dream, or that your dream that you had as a child would have changed. Or you may have had a dream that you still have, you just are not doing it. Why or why not? All right, let's look at the fourth question. What is your dream now, today? If you had your druthers, if you had no obstacles, if you had no constraints or limitations, what would you do now? What is your dream right now? Give you a little bit of extra time for that one. Okay, and now this one, we're shifting just a little bit here. What are your three biggest fears? What are your three biggest fears? I'll give you a couple of mine. Snakes. I don't like snakes. I don't even like seeing snakes through the glass at the zoo. I don't like snakes. I don't care if they're poisonous or not. I don't like snakes. That would qualify as a fear for me. Okay, I'm working on that. Now, another fear that I have, I'm a guy, and I mis misguidedly or not believe that I'm a protector and a provider for my family. So I fear letting my family down. I fear placing my family in a situation where they would not be able to eat or have shelter. I gave you two of mine. What are your three biggest fears? Write those down. Okay. So you've gone through your dreams as a child. You've determined whether or not you're living it. You've written down why or why not. That why or why not question should have helped you come up with any of the barriers, any of the obstacles, any of the things that are holding you back now, any of the reasons. And they may make sense to you or not. Doesn't really matter. You're just putting them down. Okay? What is your dream now, and what are your three biggest fears? Now, I had a pastor at one of my former churches that would preach on fears and talk about fears all the time. And he determined, or his definition or his acronym for fear was false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. Now, that is an awesome definition, and the reason it is because a lot of times we are afraid of things that have not happened yet. We're afraid of things that have not happened yet. I'll tell you a story. I was going through a really rough financial situation. Going through a really rough financial situation, and I had no money. There were a lot of bills that were not being paid. There were things that were just not happening, just not happening. And every night I would go to sleep and I might sleep for about 45 minutes. And then I would get up, I would jump up, and I would stand in the room. I would pace the floor, and I would look out the window. I would look out the window, wondering if some guy was going to come and repossess my car in the middle of the night. Then I couldn't get to work. I couldn't get to where I needed to get to. And here's the thing, me standing there looking out the window, I don't know what that did. It didn't do a thing. Even if the guy came to repossess my car in the middle of the night, what could I have done? Could I have gone out and lay down in front of the truck, or could I have gone out and told him, "Hey, no, don't take it. Just give me a break. Give me a chance." Or maybe I could have gone on that show. They have that repo game show or something of that nature. Maybe I could have done that. But the reality is that standing up and not sleeping, losing all those hours of sleep, did absolutely nothing for me. Did absolutely nothing for me. But yet, I feared this thing. I feared these things that I thought were going to happen. False evidence appearing real. Now, I like to also look at a couple other definitions of fear. And here's a really neat graphic that I found on the web, and it says fear has two meanings. Number one, forget everything and run. Forget everything and run. Or the other thing that you could do is face everything and rise. The choice is yours. One of two things. Fear is forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. If it hasn't happened yet, then the only thing that you can do is either wait for it to happen or do something that's going to cause it not to happen. All right? So let's move on. So now that you have seen uh, your fear blueprint. You should have been able to write down some things about your dreams and the things that shape how you live and how you think and who you are. And I've told you my stories, and that should have peaked in your mind some of the things that may have occurred in your specific circumstance to either hold you back from your dreams or limit you from where you are. What do you do about those things? What do you do about those things? The thing that you do is change it. Change it. Change it. Simple. Change it. Two big words. If something is not working, then you do something different. I have a coach, and my coach would say to me, listen, everything that you've done in your life up to this point has gotten you to where you are. If that's working for you, like Dr. Phil, if that's working for you, then great. If not, then you need to do something different. You need to change it. Okay? So, what are the things that I need to change? What are the things that I need to change? I need to change several things. I need to change my thoughts. I need to change my defaults. I need to change my environment. Okay. Now, how do I change my thoughts? Golly, I think I wake up in the morning. The human mind has about 60,000 thoughts. The average human mind has about 60,000 thoughts daily. How do I change my thoughts? I I go to the car and I sit and I listen to music, and before you know it, I'm working during the day and I'm humming a song that I don't even like, but I'm still humming it, and I can't stop singing this song that I don't like. How can I control my thoughts? Well, you control your thoughts. You can't control the inception of the thought, but you control how long you dwell on it. You control how far you allow it to go. You control how much space you allow that thought to take up in your mind. And one of the best ways of looking at your thoughts and deciding what types of thoughts you're going to have more often than not is by what you're feeding your thoughts. I determine how I feed my thoughts daily by the things that I watch, the things that I say, the things that I listen to. Things like the news. I'm glad that we have the news and that it informs us of what's going on in the world. And I'm glad that it tells us about some important things daily. But the reality is, the news is a program that has anywhere from 95 to 90% of it is negativity. It's about something bad that's happening. It's about what's wrong with you. It's about what's wrong with me. It's about what's wrong with the world. It's about what's wrong with other people and why they're doing bad things and why they're doing wrong things. And if I am constantly feeding myself what's wrong, what's not right, what's limiting, what can't happen, what is not to be, then that desensitizes me to possibility. It desensitizes me to what I can do. What are the great things that are happening? What are the things that I can aspire to? What are the things that I can grow towards? And the less I hear about those things, the less I see them as possibilities. So my thoughts, I've got to feed them with things that are positive. I've got to feed them with things that are inspiring. I've got to feed them with things that let me know that there is hope and that there's possibility and I can do a lot of things. I've got power. My defaults, my blueprints, what are the things that I default to when things are going wrong or when I don't have time to think or make a judgment? You know, we talk about marriages and some of the reasons why maybe marriages or jobs or relationships don't work is because when it hits the fan, we default to who we really are. No matter how much of a facade we try to put on, we default to those things. Okay. Now, my environment, how do I change my defaults in my environment? We've got to be aware and intentional and conscious about those things. I mentioned that I listen to a lot of different inspirational or personal growth or self-growth uh, speakers. One of the ones that I listen to is Jim Rohn, and he says you are the average of the five people that you spend the most time with. You're the average of the five people that you spend the most time with. Outside of your family, let's look. I can't get rid of my wife and my three kids, so I've got to look at my other relationships. What kinds of conversations am I having in those relationships? Are these conversations about possibility, or are they conversations about what's going wrong? Who's complaining about what they can't do, how much they didn't make, or how come they didn't get that promotion, or what wrong happened last week? Are those the types of conversations that I'm having? Do I need to reevaluate my friendships? And now I'm not saying that you've got to get rid of your friends. I'm not saying that the people that you hang out with, now you've just got to totally throw them to the curb and get a new set of friends. But the reality is you may need to look, once you decide your goals, once you decide where you need to get to, you may need to look at who are the 3-hour conversation friends and who are the 3-minute conversation friends. Okay, you may need to spend less time or more time depending on where you are. Now, honestly, look at yourself. Look at yourself. I sound like the Old Spice commercial. Look at me. Look back at me. Look at yeah. Anyway, I'll get off of that really quickly because I'm not good with repeating commercials. Anyway, so if you look at yourself and you look at the friends that are around you, you've got to know that, or you can see pretty much that your friends and yourself are probably in similar financial circumstances. You probably have maybe similar amount of children. You probably do or like a lot of the same things. And there's a reason for that. Like attracts like. You hang out with the people that you're comfortable with. You hang out with the people that are in your zone. And we're talking about a comfort zone again. You hang out with the people that you feel measure up to maybe where you are. Not where you want to be, but where you are. So if I've got a goal and if I've got something that I'm aspiring towards, I might need to spend more time with the people that are either already there or who can help me get towards those things. Look at it. Look at it. When you talk about if wealth is one of your goals, who do wealthy people hang out with? Yeah, exactly. Other wealthy people. You go back to high school, who did the popular kids hang out with? Yeah, other popular people. Okay. On the other side, and I was one of these people, so don't get mad that I say it. But who did the nerds hang out with? Yep, I was considered a nerd in high school. I grew out of it a little bit. I think so, at least. I'll check with my wife and see if she agrees. Anyway, so who did they hang out with? Other people that were like them. So if you want to change where you're headed, if you want to achieve something different, if you want to do something different, if you've got something big that you want to get to, then you've got to change or look at the people or the environment that you're in. Okay? So, one moment, my screen is going backwards. Let's get back to where I need to get to. Hope you can edit this, Rebecca. Okay. So now, what do I do about my blueprint? What do I do about my blueprint? If I want to make a change, if I want to do something awesome, if I want to do something epic, if I want to do something exceptional, how do I fight against my blueprint, the things that I'm afraid of? Number one, I've got to be committed. And what do I mean by committed? You've got to want it bad. You've got to want it so bad that you're willing to do almost anything for it. Another motivational speaker, Eric Thomas, says that you've got to want it so bad, you've got to want it as bad as you want to breathe. You've got to want it so bad that you think about it like air. Okay? You've got to be committed. The next thing you've got to be is consistent. You got to be consistent. You can't just decide that you're going to make a change and do it one at a time, or one time on Monday, then one time on Friday, and then one time the next week. You've got to be consistent. You've got to do it every day for a specific amount of time, at a specific time, or for a specific number of times. And based on that's what our 28 days group, the book, the philosophy is based on. You've got to do it every day for a specific amount of time, at a specific time, or a specific number of times. Not all of them. It may just be one of them. Now, the last thing that is going to be helpful to you, and you probably, if you've listened to the other calls today, the last thing that is going to be helpful to you to change your blueprint is coaching. Coaching. Now, yeah, you're a coach, Robert. Of course you're going to say that you need coaching. You do. People need coaching. And the reason I say that I need coaching is that you can't see your own back without a mirror. If you think about it, if you look at the greatest athletes or the top athletes, if you look at the top celebrities, if you look at the president, if you look at all of the people that are in the most successful positions, they all have coaches. They all have coaches. They did not get there on their own. They didn't just think it up and speak it into the atmosphere and get there. They've got a plan, and they've got people that are able to work it through with them. They've got people that are able to talk them through. They've got people that are able to help them see the side of themselves that they might not have been able to see otherwise. They have coaches. Now, one of the things that I like to say is, look, I've got all of these things that happened inside of my comfort zone. But in order to reach success, in order to achieve my dreams, in order to have growth happen, in order to have true learning take place, I've got to get outside my comfort zone. Success doesn't often happen inside your comfort zone. In order to get awesome, in order to be epic, in order to be exceptional, I've got to get outside of my comfort zone. I've got to get outside of it. One of the things that I did when the market was hot was I spent a couple of years as a real estate agent. And my real estate manager would say to us, listen, if you want to be successful at the market, if you want to learn how to really show people where the best properties are, what works for them, then you've got to know the area. And what's the best way to do that? Even in driving from the office to your house, take a different way home every day. Take a different way home. Get out of your comfort zone. Get lost and find your way. That is how you grow. That is how you pass your fear. That's how you change your fear blueprint. Okay? Now, on the screen here, I've got one huge reason that many people give up. They start doing something. They start trying to change that blueprint. They start trying to do something a little bit different than their default. But the reason that a lot of people give up is because they're trying to make too many changes at one time. They want to work out. They want to work on their diet. They want to work on their budgeting. They want to work on their relationship. They want to work on their spiritual relationship. They want to work on writing a book. They want to work on starting a business. They want to work on getting a promotion on their current job, all at the same time. All at the same time. They had a hallelujah moment, and they decided that I've got to change everything right now. and they try to make too many changes at one time. It's kind of like the whole New Year's resolution idea. People write down all these resolutions. They write down 25 resolutions on January 1, and by January 3rd, they've broken half of them. By January 5th, they've broken two-thirds of them. By January 7th, they've probably given up on all of them because they tried to attack too many things at one time, and they just couldn't take the massive failure that took place. So the idea here is, as you change your fear blueprint, as you start to attack things differently, as you start to move into a new phase of your life, and as you start to move towards success, you've got to do one thing. You've got to change one thing at a time. I don't have a graphic on the screen, but a great book that I read that really talks about this is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Talked about focusing on one thing and making small steps towards this and building up momentum. And before you know it, that momentum will explode, and you'll see that you're making real progress on that one thing. So focus on one thing. Okay. Now now that you've figured out a little bit about the fear blueprint and all the things that are holding you back a little bit, let's look at the future. Who do I want to be? And you should write these things down just as you wrote down the other things. We wrote down the limitations. Now let's talk about the possibilities. If I could accomplish only one great thing, what would that be? If I could accomplish only one great thing, what would that be? There are no limitations. Take the chains off. Whatever you want is what you can put here. It doesn't really matter. If I could accomplish only one great thing, if I could climb Mount Everest, if I could beat Richard Branson and be the first person to have a commercial airline to Mars, if I could do one great thing, what would that be? Bring in your childlike imagination and think about that. Second question, what can I do today towards that? Some of us think about our dreams and we think that it's impossible to reach them, and we start to sink back into the comfort zone or sink away from the possibilities, and we start to go back to the very thing that we hate, the very thing that is disgusting to us, the very thing that we complain about every day. We start to go right back to that. Your dreams are possible. What can I do today? What one step can I take today towards that dream? Now, you may have some personal things that are inhibiting you, some situations, some thought processes, some language that you continue to use. What's one thing that I can change or create immediately, not later today, right now, right this moment? What's one thing that in the next second, before I get off this phone call, what's one thing I can change or create immediately? Write that down. Let's take about 30 more seconds to do that. Now, the one thing that I would like to say to everybody that you can do, we talk about failure, especially with regard to fear. We talk about failure. And I like to say that in order for you to meet success, failure is a requirement. We watched the movie Apollo 13, and it said failure is not an option. I like to say it is an option. As a matter of fact, it is a requirement. That's how we grow. That's how we progress. That's how we move towards the place of achievement. Okay, so you're gonna fail, and so sometimes in order to make change, you've got to decide to quit. You've got to decide to quit. You've got to decide to quit waiting for life to happen. You've got to create opportunity. You've got to decide to quit being scared. Punch fear in the face. Take a risk. Go big. Go galactic. Decide to quit whining. Begin to move. Start a movement. Other people, when you whine, they don't care. They've got their own issues. Instead, decide that you're going to speak life and empowerment. Decide that you're going to quit worrying. I was standing by the window worrying, waiting for the repo guy to come. The only thing that changes when you worry is your blood pressure. So decide that you're going to quit. Why continue to keep worrying around? Why continue to keep worry around if it's not going to do you any good? Decide to quit faking. Forget what everybody else thinks. Quit seeking everybody else's approval. Go for it. We care so much sometimes about what people think, and when you think about it, they're not really thinking about you anyway. All right? Decide to quit trying to do it all on your own. For me, I'm a Christian. Trust God, trust community, trust family, trust relationships. Decide to quit trying to do it all on your own. Decide to quit limiting yourself. You know what? You are a receptacle for limitless power. Claim it and intentionally use it. You are a receptacle for limitless power. Decide to quit giving up. You're so much closer than you know. And wouldn't it be a shame to give up knowing that you were inches from success? Decide to quit fighting battles that don't matter. Sometimes we decide every day that we're going to get into arguments. We're going to get into gossip. We're going to get into little conflicts that don't really matter. You've got too much to give to the world. There's so much more ahead. There's so much more to learn. There's so much to enjoy. Decide to quit accepting less for yourself. You deserve so much more. You were created with greatness in mind. An entire world was created with you in mind. You deserve life. You deserve happiness. You deserve peace. You deserve contentment. You deserve laughter. You deserve joy. You deserve paradise. You deserve it all. Go get it. Go get it. Go get it. Decide to quit sitting around. Find your heart. Find your passion. And then do something amazing. Do something amazing. An author that I read last year, Steve Chandler, he said that you're always in one of two places in life. You're always in one of two places. You are either in reaction or you're in creation. Decide to quit reacting. Go ahead and create. That's how you change your blueprint. That's how you decide that you're not going to do those old things anymore. Commit. Be consistent. Get somebody to help you do this, either a coach or a mentor. But the biggest thing is that in your mind, you've got to decide how to shift your story. Now, here's the thing. I'm a coach, and this is what I do. I'd love to be able to help. I help people every day. I help small business owners decide what the strategies are that they need to take in order to reach their goals. I help them decide what their goals are, or help them figure out what they really want, what their dreams are, what they're really looking to achieve, what contribution they really want to make to the world. What is their passion? What is the thing that they love to do? What is their actual purpose? How can they live with purpose? I'd love to be able to help you do that. So what I'd like to do is offer a couple of things to people. If you decide that you're ready for some transformation, if you decide that you just want to have a powerful conversation that's going to make a difference for you in your life, then contact me. I'll share my contact information shortly, and let's just have a 60-minute power strategy session, seeing what it is that you are up to in your life and what it is that you want to get to, and then concocting or creating a strategy for you to get there without fear in your life. And now, here's the other thing that I want to give to you. We created a book a few months ago, 28 Days to a New Me, about creating powerful transformations in your life. Not a long read. It takes you 28 days to read it or less. Really short. The book is on Amazon.com. There's a paperback version there. But if you are really interested in starting a transformation or starting this in your life, then I'd love for you to email me, and I'll send you a free download, a free gift. Ebook at robertkennedy3.com. That's ebook at robertkennedy3.com, and I will get you that free download as soon as possible. I'll get it to you within 24 hours. Okay? So here's one more thing. People like yourselves are often looking for a little bit of help. Sometimes you're not sure which way you need to settle in, which way you need to move forward with your life. And a lot of times when we think we are by ourselves, it's tough to make a decision to move forward. We think that nobody else is in our circumstance or in our situation. But one of the things that I like to do is I like to talk to people together. And so starting November 1st, we are opening up a group coaching program called Living with Purpose, Power, and Profit. Living with Purpose, Power, and Profit. Other group coaching programs that we've run that are similar run about $497 for the month, and those group coaching programs consist of a lot of different activities, a lot of different downloads, a lot of different take-home activities that you can really use to formulate and strategize and organize your life. But there are also coaching calls. You'll have access to myself as well as another coach to really help you move forward, to really help you align where you want to go. So what we're doing is, if you are wanting to be a part of this, starting November 1st today, we'll give you the price for $249. 28-day coaching program, 1 month, Living with Purpose, Power, and Profit. And if you're interested in that, simply go to my website here, www.robertkennedy3.com/purpose, power, profit. That's www.robertkennedy3.com/purpose, power, profit. And we're starting that on November 1st. Once you sign up there, we'll talk, and I'll get you some information, and we'll decide what's the best way to go. Okay? That sounded like a commercial, didn't it? Well, it actually was. So that's not a bad thing. I'm going to start really practicing that and getting that right. All right? So that's it. That's it. You too can live with purpose, power, and profit. Your blueprint is not your destiny. Your blueprint is not what your end point is. You can change that. You can decide how to get rid of the obstacles, how to get rid of the fears, how to get rid of all of the things that limit you from leading a prosperous, purposeful, and profitable life. Thanks. Thanks for listening. This is Robert Kennedy. Rebecca?
Thank you, Robert. That was great. There are so many good ideas you shared, and I'm sitting here taking notes, saying one of my biggest issues is I'm trying to change too many things at once. So you really hit home the point with me. I've got to kind of pare down my list and just focus and plow through so I don't get discouraged. So
awesome.
That's hard for some of us, right?
That's okay. That's okay. I forgot. If I just put my information on the screen here. I like to talk to people. So if you want to get with me on Twitter as well, at @RobertKennedy3, and Facebook as well. So we'd love to chat with people as well.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing. And afterwards, we'll certainly send out an email that has all of this information to everyone. And thanks again, Robert, for taking time out of your day to come share with us a whole slew of great ideas and to start creating and not just reacting. Great information. Thank you again, and we will talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you.